It's Dr. Kadisha, your board-certified emergency medicine physician and Amazon #1 best-selling author of the book, Help Us Help You in the Emergency Room, What an ER Doctor Would Tell You If She Only Had the Time. And I am welcoming you today to day 3 of the 5-day Emergency Ready Challenge. And what is the Emergency Ready Challenge? It is a challenge to you to help you get yourself and your family better prepared for an emergent medical situation. And how have we done that? Well, on day 1, we discussed your nearest emergency department. Do you know where it is? Did you know how to get there? Did you know exactly how to get to the emergency portion of your hospital? Did you know the parking situation? And did you know how to get to the proper entrance? That was day 1. On day 2, we discussed the necessity of everyone in your household knowing the medical status of everyone else in the household. Why? Because knowing a person's medical conditions, medications, surgeries, allergies, all those things could end up saving a life. And bad things happen in the middle of the night. People are surprised by sicknesses and injuries in the middle of the night. And you want to have everyone in that household with you prepared to know what your medical situation is going into the hospital, because they may literally have to give answers in their sleep. And it could avoid delays in treatment, delays in evaluation, and it could really, again, save a life. Having your spouse, your kids, your roommate, that live-in boyfriend or girlfriend know what your medical status is could save your life. So now, for day 3, we ask the question, when was your last doctor's visit? And why? Because your medical status was evaluated at that time, and certain recommendations may have been given. And even if you say, and people usually say, oh, nothing was found, everything was okay, usually the doctor has some recommendations that they want you to carry out before your next visit. Were there any recommendations to adjust the doses of your medications, those high blood pressure and diabetic medications? Were you supposed to make appointments for any procedures? Are you overdue for procedures? Things like that. So that's why it is important to know and really think about what went on at your last doctor's visit. And, be ready to, let us know if there were things that were recommended that weren't done, because that could be the reason why you're in the emergency room with us right now. So, and we're not trying to get you to come out with the exact date. It could just be like the month and the year, because those doctor's visits are so important. And I've seen a number of patients kind of blow off having a primary care doctor because they feel fine, they're not feeling anything. They say they never get sick, but I will remind you, I'm sure you've had to have heard this before. Hypertension sets in and gets worse, and you might not notice anything. Diabetes sets in and gets worse, and research has shown that a number of people, millions of Americans, when they're diagnosed as diabetic, they've had it for anywhere from a few years to up to 7 years sometimes. So that's why it's so important to get those regular doctor's visits. And yeah, when you're younger, going to see the doctor every 1 to 3 years is recommended. Yeah, up to 3 years. Even I was surprised. I really think you should see a doctor at least every year for a physical. But they said based on your risk factors, 1 to 3 years. As you get older, based on your risk factors and medical conditions, it could still be once a year. I've seen some sources say between 65 and 70, once a year is good. But I know people who see a doctor every 6 months in that age range. But it's, again, based on your medical conditions. So in 70 to 80, every 6 months. over the age of 80 every 3 months. Okay, and it could be more, again, based on your medical conditions. And that's why it's important to go see the doctor, as recommended. Because, I have a lot of people come in and they don't look healthy, or their blood pressure's through the roof, or their blood sugar is high. And I say, when was your last doctor's visit? And they cannot recall. And they'll say, well, I don't have any medical problems. And I'll ask, when was your last doctor's visit? They can't recall. It's like, yeah, and you probably have something going on now that could have been picked up during a regular, less expensive primary care visit. The Centers for Disease Control reiterate that going to regular doctor's visits helps you find problems before they start, and if there are problems, usually you can find them early enough when the chances of treatment and cure are better. In that way, you can also more likely be up to date on new screening recommendations, like screenings for skin cancer, breast cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, things like that, because I'm seeing more and more 20-year-olds, people in their 20s with high blood pressure, people in their 20s with adult onset diabetes, so not the type 1 juvenile diabetes, but the type 2 diabetes. And that's why I really recommend that you see a primary care doctor and get physicals once a year. You do not want to have your last doctor's visit to always be an emergency room visit, because we always recommend follow-up with a primary care doctor to monitor your recovery from what you saw us for, and for your primary care needs being the prevention of life-threatening and costly chronic conditions. So, if you can look at that, consider when was your last doctor's visit, what was actually discussed, and were there really any recommendations that you should have followed up on? Because, following up on those things, getting those medications adjusted and things like that, that could be the difference between you ending up in the emergency room in the near future and not ending up in the emergency room in the near future. So thank you. This was day 3 of the 5-day ER challenge, ER standing for Emergency Ready. Sign up for the Emergency Ready Challenge at www.theerchallenge.com. That's THEER Challenge, CHALLENGE.com. That will give you this information, the assignments for the day. That way you can start at day 1 and keep up through day 5. And this is Dr. Khadisha, your board-certified emergency medicine physician. Check out my Amazon #1 best-selling book, Help Us Help You, in the emergency room on Amazon, or you can get an autographed hard copy at www.helpushelpyoubook.com. That's everything spelled out, HELPUS, And this is Dr. Khadisha signing out until day 4 of the 5-day Emergency Ready Challenge. Good night.